This is an interview with Villins on Sunday, May 22nd, 2022 by Nick Perkel. Can you each fill me in on how your year was since the last time we spoke?
We had a pretty good year. We're starting to perform again, which has been totally awesome. Unfortunately, we did catch COVID, so that kind of sucked. But aside from that, we're kind of like getting back in the zone with our performing again, which is fantastic.
Have you studied or come into contact with any new writing or recording techniques since then?
But I would say we're probably trying to go a little bit back to basics. We're doing some things now where we're a little bit more back to doing things entirely self-produced, just meaning really building tracks from the ground all the way to finished. So a little bit like sort of rededicating ourselves to some of the basics of how we like to do things.
Now, did you take that idea from anyone you really respect, or was it just like, hey, I'm gonna cut out the middleman and just say, you know what, I'm doing almost everything myself?
Well, I guess the song that we're releasing soon, it kind of lent us producing it ourselves, whereas some of the stuff, like the last thing that we talked to you about was the Power EP. It was a good thing for us to be able to work with a drummer and to get that mixed by somebody else. It just felt like the right thing to do for that particular EP. But yeah, it was kind of like based on the song this time around. We were like, all right, we're gonna do this ourselves.
When you're listening to music, are you more of a headphones person or a person that appreciates a room of speakers approach to enjoying your tunes?
I guess it's sort of been when we're listening to the stuff that we're working on, we're listening mostly in the room with studio monitors and pretty loud. And for me, as a music fan, I grew up liking to hear things, on speakers and all that. But sometimes listening to new things on headphones is cool too.
Yeah, and I like listening on like a wide range of things too. Like sometimes I'll just listen on my laptop speakers just to hear like how, any person would be, clicking on our music and hearing it for the first time. So I kind of like to listen on a wide range of things. But like if I'm really going at it, oh man, like cranking up those speakers, that's the way to go.
Okay, now, when it comes to pop music in the past year, what production endears your heart the most and what attracts you to it?
I would say that the last year might be a little bit too short to say that anything really jumped out at us. I would say like in the last couple of years, I really dug and dig some of the production on some of Idol's stuff, like on some of their stuff. Their new records maybe less poppy than Ultramono, the one before, but I was digging some of that stuff.
How often do you get a chance to speak to other musicians about their studios and songwriting techniques?
I would say that most of the other musicians and producers and stuff that I talk music with, we probably don't talk too much about specific techniques or gear or this and that. It's a little more, I would say, like a philosophy, like people's just like overall attitude towards music. We don't get too deep into specifics of what people are using or how they're working, but just sort of talking about music in general and approach in general.
You have a new single, Bodies, that really makes me think of dream pop. Almost kind of makes me feel like seeing a trippy version of the Alice in Wonderland story. By the way, what was your favorite adaptation of that story?
We were talking about recently. We went on a bit of a Tom Petty kick, and we're talking about the "Don't Come Around Here No More" video.
That video is awesome.
Yeah, it's a really awesome video, and it's really campy and everything, but sort of plays on the Alice in Wonderland story. It sets off really cool. Maybe, it's not a film, and maybe not as a true adaptation, but we watched that recently and thought it was really rad.
Yeah.
I see. With me,
love that song too. It's it's a killer song.
I don't know. With me, I always feel like the Disney version was my favorite, but the live action stuff with I guess Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter is good too. But I don't know. I just love the animated one the best, just because I don't know. It brings me back to my childhood. Now,
totally. Now that was like another one that came to mind. Yeah, that was like a big part of my childhood, just seeing that on TV.
now, what did you use to develop the track? Perhaps layering the different parts of it, or how did the stages of it grow?
So with a song like Bodies, that this goes a little bit to like sort of our approach. I mean, some of what we're doing in production now. That song really started out very rhythmic. So we started that a while ago, and we had sort of a pretty a hip hop beat that had some pretty strong accents to it. It was a little bit off time to people who write beats. It's like almost like a DJ Premier thing. It's like it's a little out. And so the thing started with this beat that was very like sort of MPC style beat that was a little bit out, very busy and funky, but like a little bit off. And then that and like a organ part. And then
and the hook.
No. I'm saying we had that
Oh,
loop
right,
and then the hook.
Yeah, right.
And so for a while, the song really existed as sort of this very moody church organ hook with a beat with a pretty hard beat, a little bit off the grid, and like triplets going against it. Then over time, that's where it came to. Then we simplified it in some ways and also made it much deeper and dreamier in some other ways.
Right. We also performed it live a lot, so I think that had a pretty big influence over what it became from what it was.
Right.
But the hook always stayed kind of the same, right?
And maybe the song, maybe the record of it maybe is a little dreamier than it has been live. So it's like
It's true.
built more of that into it.
Fill me in on the different instruments used to compose the track.
Okay, so we were saying it started with a programmed beat and organ and some stuff like that and sub bass, and so it started more like that kind of thing. We wrote a lot of it, but then after we played it live a lot, the song developed a whole other layer with guitars and other counter melodies and stuff. So in the track, there's a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of itself we simplified with a sort of played in, still programmed but sort of played in beat with using the electric kit and all that. It's a lot going on. There's like sub basses and churchy sounds and definitely there's some dream poppy stuff that we like to do, and choir. There's a lot in there.
There's a lot of vocal tracks in there too. Like it's pretty stacked.
Yeah. And in the choices that we had to make in order to fit what the song became live, the song sort of gained like a sort of arc live, and it sort of has a crescendo. And to get all that in, we traded we simplified the beat, and that really helps. So that makes all really inside sort of geeked out stuff, but it's a lot of like the process, getting it to feel like at least what we think feels like a record.
Right now, do you have a personal style or tendency on how you create new compositions?
We're still digging into our Villins archives, and we have not been in writing mode in quite a long time. We're producing a lot of our tracks that are unreleased right now, but yeah, we haven't really been writing, so we're excited to get to that point again, but we are not there right now.
And I would say if anything, if we're doing any noodling or anything, it's definitely more in the piano and guitar range, but really trying not to start new tracks and like write like that, because that can, be sort of when you're trying to work on it, you might noodle around or, that kind of stuff. Not getting into writing up new beats and tracks and all that right now.
In the past year, what has been the most exciting and inspirational album or song that you heard?
Personally, I still only like newer stuff that I'm fanning is I'm still enjoying Idols. I like some stuff on the new record, the Wheel stuff that's really cool. But we also listen to a lot of classic music, just of all different kinds of. We tend to spend more time listening to classic stuff than current stuff, I think.
Absolutely. And really nerding out about vocal styles and vocal technique. So I've just been listening to like a lot of good singers. Like right now I'm just really into listening to Whitney Houston. I mean, who isn't? But I don't know. I've just been listening to singers with really awesome vocal technique. So.
Are you familiar with the concept of the Akashic Records? And do you think there's like a personal one for writers and musicians in which they can access all their composed work throughout like the different times and lifetimes?
So can you explain a little bit what Akashic Records are?
Okay, it's kind of like the idea of like, I guess maybe it's a little bit of like kind of like an Eastern religion type thing where like you have like different lifetimes. Like let's say, in the 20th and 21st century, you're Jessica, but like maybe 80 or 100 years ago, you were a different person, and so on. And maybe you had the same personality, but you lived through different lifetimes. And maybe you were an artist back then, maybe you were a painter or something like that. And just like thinking about like maybe you wrote a novel, maybe you were like a newspaper columnist or something like that. It's kind of like that idea.
I would appreciate if that.
It's like past lives. Yeah.
And future. So lifetime's a flat circle. It would be great if you could hear your finished mixes of things that from the future, or have the session folder for your future mixes. That would be helpful. But no, the idea that things that you sort of have a precognitive sense of things, or that things that are new can feel familiar. That's certainly true in music, that you can be making something and it can feel familiar in some way, which...
Or you have a song idea that you think of, like in your own space, and then suddenly a month later somebody comes out with a song and you're like, oh, I had that similar idea. Something like that. Like that's happened to us before.
Some things are like in the collective consciousness, or some things are an appropriate response to what's going on. So sometimes you might have an idea and then somebody else has an idea at the same time, because it's...
Well, that's true. Yeah. But like I'm saying, songs like we've written, you know, that were like totally, we were not thinking about anything except for...
Well, people might be inspired by the same stuff subconsciously. Yeah.
I think I might have been like a fish in my past life.
Clearly, we haven't put a lot of thought into something, but you've given us something to go on. I feel like we're underachieving, that we haven't perceived our futures yet, but we're good. Next time we talk to you, hopefully we'll have visited our future and have
We
evidence.
have the mix, we have the hit record.
Yeah.
Along with some lottery numbers. That
would be awesome. Yeah. Now, hey, it's possible.
Would you like to go back to any questions?
No, I think that was pretty fun. Yeah.
Final words.
Well, definitely listen to our new single called Bodies, coming out on Friday, June 3rd. That's going to be out on like Spotify, Apple Music, you know, all the places. So go ahead and just like check that out. And we are Villins, Villins. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all the good stuff.
And is there like a dedicated website to get like physical copies of your merch and all that? And also, when is the next live show you got?
Yeah. So we have a Bandcamp. So we're villins.bandcamp.com, and we have like a whole merch store up there. You get CDs, T-shirts, you know, the whole thing. And we have 2 shows coming up actually real soon. We have one on the 27th, a pop culture convention in Philadelphia called Thy Geekdom Con. And then on June 1st, we're going to be at Arlene's Grocery with Gin War, Semi-Auto Band, and our friend's band, Silvertooth Cactus.
This has been an interview with Villins on May 22nd, 2022 by Nick Perkel.